Leave that to you, sir. So for the public hearing, we'll first open it up for you to tell us anything you want to tell us about it, and anybody else that wants to speak either on behalf or against the idea.
We're talking about the old Butler House at 1410 Vilburton. And we have some great ideas, we think. The underside of the barn back in the back is about 5,000 square feet. And we intend to put a floor in that and having that as an event center for weddings, quinceaneras, whatever, special events. Our family is, we own some farm property, ranch property outside of town, and we're very interested in regenerative agriculture. So there's some talent around here for that kind of thing too. The house itself, we want to put a restaurant in. We've talked to a couple of chefs that would think it'd be a great venue for special type dinners, themed dinners, that type of thing. And we're also talking about a normal noontime carry out type restaurant, indoor and or eat in and outdoor. Then the top floor of that house, by the way, that house is 4,750 square feet. And the top floor is, there's 3 bedrooms up there. And we're talking about a B&B for out of that part of it. But we want to bring in some speakers and that sort of thing, and have some like if the schools had programs that they wanted to do for agriculture or whatever education, would host those. Anything else you want to say, Tom?
Typically, we won't ask any questions during the public hearing portion. It's possible, once we leave that and go into meeting, that we might. But is there, I guess we have to ask, is there anyone else that wants to speak either on behalf of or opposed to this? But since there's no one else in here, I think we can probably close the public hearing.
Yeah. And
call the planning and zoning meeting to order.
thank you.
I assume you've already taken roll. So the minutes were emailed out.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from March 2nd.
I'll second him.
With a motion and a second to approve the March 2nd minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. So we have the one citizen request. Justin, do you have anything else that you need to tell us, or?
So I just wanted to point out a couple things with the track. Is everybody familiar with the property we're talking about?
Yeah.
So I did have it pulled up on Google Street View. It's situated in between 2 commercial zones already. You've got the Howe Valley Medical Park, and then East Main Plaza, I guess. That is. We went back and looked at our existing comprehensive land use plan to see what the future land use for that would be, and it does show it to be future commercial. So it is consistent with that.
And that's such a prime property
Yeah.
to actually have as commercial there, especially.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because and you look at this yellow portion right here.
Yeah.
And so when we did the legal description, we had to basically take this section out because that's actually in the county. So part of their property is in the city and in the county. We may talk to Mr. Grimm in the future, maybe try to clean that up and
finishing
annex
that.
that.
Yeah.
But as for right now, that's where we stand.
Well,
And is that the barn that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Is that right on that line?
Right on the line, right there, yeah.
Is that?
yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how all that got brought into the city back then, but
Yeah.
like that triangle was left out. That makes sense.
So for that little quarter part of the barn, you can do anything you want with it.
Just be careful, they're gonna walk a fine line on what they're doing there.
Well, we're all alive.
Just don't sell anything on that side, so. No.
But that's, from a staff standpoint, we looked at it, there's nothing, glaring to us other than, and did you have a question, John?
No, go ahead.
Other than, following what that comp plan was showing for that rezone.
And the infrastructure's there to support, I assume there'll be additional as far as sewer and all of that,
Yes.
given it being an event center.
Yes, we got plenty of capacity there. And this is probably good information for you too. We'd actually replaced a water line out front, and upsize that water line. And if you guys, and I actually have a picture, I think this would be kind of good to look at. There's a pretty good grade difference. You can't see it in this picture, but there's a hill there.
Mhm.
So when we got the easement for that, they had us put that water line in below road grade in case you ever cut that property down. So just food for thought in the future, but yes, we do have the infrastructure there, Brenda. Yep.
To me, there's no question that should be commercial property. On the rezoning request, I don't really have any questions. More of a curiosity question. Since we're talking about a house and a barn that were built many years ago, in 50s, 60s. Obviously not to today's building code, converting a residence to a business. How does that work with code and?
That's a good
All those
question.
issues.
They would, so there's certain things that I hate to keep using this term grandfathered in, but certain things are grandfathered in, but when you actually change the use group of a building, they have to pull permits and then they would have to meet the minimum code requirements for that use group. So if it is a restaurant and assembly type, there may be some things that they have to do differently. Obviously, you're looking at exit lighting, door swings, things of that nature. So they would have to meet that minimum standard. Same with the barn.
Same with the barn.
Yeah.
Would, in the changes that he's talking about here, will that have to come back? I mean, the zoning is all we're talking about now.
Right.
So
So
that would have to come back as a site plan?
not
approval?
for modifications. We don't bring those to P and Z. If it's new construction, you guys would see it. What we'll do is we'll just apply the code to what they're doing. With the rezone, it fits for the use that they're looking to do. But we don't bring those back before you guys.
Okay. So parking and access would not be a factor.
We would try to implement that from staff point.
There's definitely plenty of property for all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the approach or the access, I think would be the only thing in possibly in question there.
good question. I mean, it typically in the past, unless it's been a large like renovation or something, staff doesn't feel comfortable enough with doing. We've brought some of those requests before P and Z, especially if they're changing the site plan like a whole lot. We've done it in the past, but not very often.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Motion. to
Make a
rec-
motion to recommend council approve the zoning request to C2.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to recommend the zoning change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll be recommended to council next week. Is that
The
correct?
17th.
17th.
Yep.
Week after next.
Next week's a special.
Do we have anything else that we need to do tonight?
I think we're good.
If not, we'll stand adjourned.